Welcome to JGTCR. I'm Cope, and today we are looking at the new cars available on update 1.57 on GT7. Let's get into it. In this video we will share thoughts on new vehicles in factory trim, share a quick base tune and some commentary on the completely modified versions of these cars. First up, it's the Renault Kangoo. The Renault Kangoo drives surprisingly well in factory trim. Maybe it's because it's a bit slow, the handling is actually fairly good. It responds well to our inputs and it does so in a timely manner. Very proper. The power isn't much to write home about, and it struggles on inclines of almost any sort. We need to rev the crap out of it to keep it going in general, but specifically on hills. The power and power delivery is relatively weak. Not enough juice to spin the wheels, try as hard as we may. It gives us almost nothing. The brakes work well, but if we're being honest, it's not a tough job slowing down from only 140 kilometers an hour. Let's take a peek at our quick tune. There certainly is a lot more giddy up in this vehicle after it has been modified, and the default settings work quite nicely. That's right, we can take it out on circuit without tuning and we have no issues. It is plug and play. But of course, a little tune goes a long way. The handling has improved and this Renault is much more agile on circuit. There is much more power, but it is not aggressive in any way, shape or form. In our trials on Interlagos, we used all three turbos and each returned the same result. Our lap times on Interlagos were all within 0.03 of a second of each other. We optioned the low turbo in this build as response was a priority. Results may vary from circuit to circuit. Overall, the Kangoo is a pleasant surprise and does perform considerably well. On to the next vehicle. The Mazda CX-30X is a bit of a heavy and sloppy vehicle. This is clearly not a race car, and it lets us know that. The handling does have quite a bit of weight shift to contend with, and it likes to dig in on heavy turns. This can leave us struggling to maintain control as we start to push harder. The power is fairly weak. It does get up and moving eventually, but it does so at a leisurely pace. The power and power delivery is a touch strange. It needs to be revved out decently to keep it in power band. However, revving out and turning of any kind equals wheel spin. This can be tedious to manage when we are trying to take turns. This ends up being a lot of work for a low-powered front-wheel drive vehicle. The brakes work okay, but it is easy to unsettle this vehicle due to the spongy nature. Let's take a glance at the tune. Yet another vehicle where the default settings work considerably well, but as we are well aware, we got the tune. The handling is much better in almost every condition. However, under heavy load it does still struggle. Nowhere near as bad as it once did, but it can still be felt. Turning and accelerating hard does compromise the steering a bit, mostly causing understeer, but it's not too bad. The power has improved considerably, but it does not spin the wheels too much or for too long. And if we do run into any issues, of course, we can always back off a touch. The brakes are no longer spongy, they are now quite solid and do stop us quite well, considering the weight and format. The CX-30X is a bit of a weak entry, and it does fall short of any mark that it really tries to hit. On to the next one. the Aston Martin Vantage 18 seemed like it was going to be a cracker of a vehicle. Unfortunately, it is another heavy and sloppy vehicle. When looking at it, one would expect a sporty feel, but what we end up with is a lazy brute. The handling works well enough, but it does feel very heavy in every aspect of what we do on circuit. The steering is decent until we add throttle, and then the car feels unbalanced and a bit strange if we're being honest. The power is quite solid, but it feels lazy to get moving, which is deceptive because it's ready to break traction at any given moment. The issue is that there is a lot of bottom end torque, and it does like to be driven in that area unless we are on a dead straight section of road. The power delivery is aggressive when we need it the least, not at all times, but mostly when we turn. Suffice to say that throttle control is critical when we're trying to lay down fast lap times. When slides do occur, they can be controlled quite easily as long as we stay on throttle and maintain one angle. If we try and get jiggy with our drift, the Vantage becomes bipolar with its understeer and oversteer. So use caution and maintain control at all times. And now the tune sheet. The default settings on the Vantage are quite squirrely, so our streak has been broken. Nevertheless, it is a marked improvement over the factory vehicle. Post-tuning, it is quicker and much more stable. We did have to make some extreme decisions on settings, but it worked out rather well. The handling is quite good, but it does understeer on corner exit if the rear hooks. That being said, some throttle modulation makes quick work of said understeer. The power and power delivery is still quite strong, and it does like to step the tail end at mid to mid-high RPM. The best way to counter this is to use the lower RPM range. There is copious amounts of bottom end torque to pull us through the turns, and we will maintain traction while doing so. The brakes do work well at slowing us down, but the tail end can get light on heavy braking. This can cause the tail end to step out if we are not vigilant with our inputs. The Aston Martin Vantage is the best looking and the fastest vehicle of this update. However, it is not the most well-rounded vehicle of the update. That award goes to the Renault Kangoo. Believe it or not. And there you have it, a quick rundown and base tune of all the vehicles available from update 1.57. Keep in mind these are just preliminary tunes. For more detailed tunes, keep an eye on the tuner series also available on this channel, where we are making our way through the list in manufacturer's order and tuning every vehicle available on GT7. And that's all we have for you today, so until next time, keep racing!